Hey guys, PDC here, and this is kind of a very, very late game that we're doing. This is like 5:30 in the morning, but you know, I figured I was awake, so might as well catch it. Of course, I'm catching it a little bit late, but that's okay. So I'm just going to recap what we've seen so far. We see a Hariyama lead into Empoleon, Starmie. Spectran gets a kill on Yama turn 1. Empoleon gets rocks up, Melodic reveals Dragon Breath, Empoleon Grass Knots Discharge, Pump, Discharge, Empoleon dies, and now we're here. So, with that quick summary, these guys are playing quite fast. Violet River is a typically ADV player, and we can see some of that exactly here, and he's running a Hariyama. However, that's not 100% unknown in DPP. This is a dual fight build. Usually Yama, McMegan really was the one who kind of created this style honestly probably about 10 years ago. The idea of Hariyama being an extremely powerful fighter with guts and then following it up with things like Breloom or Machamp. And Mustounet, I don't know him that well, but this is kind of like a big 6 type team, only it's Melodic instead of a Starmie. He doesn't have a Scarfer as far as I can tell, but he has a Zapdos. He might have a Donphan in the back. It would make some sense. Then he'd be a little bit better insured against things like DB-Knight and DB-Tar, although DB-Tar is already handled pretty amply by his team so far. So, anyway, Jira's going to go down to a Spec Starmie Hydro Pump, and looking and judging, I mean, I do like Violet River's team, and I also like Mustounet's team. They're both, kind of classic types of builds, even though Hariyama is, unorthodox here. This is a build you would usually see with something like a Zapdos lead. And this build, Spectran with Paraspam, I assume? That's actually a pretty innovative concept. Paraspam has kind of been on the outs since Machamp got banned. But now, people are trying to reinvent it with things like Rhyperior and Spectran, and those types of Pokemon make, a real lot of sense for Paraspam because, they are slow and they're also incredibly powerful. If you can get a T-Wave off on something like Latias, then it's going to take, it would sand up like 35% from a Specs Flamethrower, and that is going to be enough to, look, you get one para, that thing is gone. So, T-Tar comes in. I didn't fully, okay, so this isn't Scarf, and it dies. What? Okay, interesting. I mean, I guess he could have thought he lived, but I'm assuming that's a Specs me. I don't know for sure. I'm assuming it is. Okay, double back on the Tram. He should get a kill here. Mustounet's last, this is probably a Scarfsaur. I'm gonna guess his last is a, yep, there's the Latias. So it was either that, it's some type of probably secondary Scarfer. This could be a different set. This could be Specs. Okay, so he straight Healing Wishes, and he goes into me, but that's just, yeah. Yeah. That's how Healing Wish works in this gen. You don't actually avoid the hit. You take it anyway. So, well, that kind of sucks, because I think that this could have been an interesting endgame here, but instead... Oh, okay, so then that's Scarf, that's banned. Alright, okay, cool. So, again, sorry guys, came in this late, but we're going to go to the next game, and hopefully it will be a little bit longer from the jump. So, that's what we are going to do. So, I mean, just a little post-facto commentary. I mean, just, you can see where the mechanics... Oh, and here the game already starts. Okay, cool. Where the mechanics really come into play. This time he got Mustounet with a Bronzong, and here Violet River appears to be using some stall. So, if the row is familiar, this could mean either a stall build from Mustounet or whatever, and, I mean, it also could be, like, yeah, Lumberry Explosion SR Zong is really good at getting Scarman early. But it's not a Magneton build, okay, so it's going to be a, interesting. Okay, so Heatran, Breloom, he's, alright, so there's a Spore. Violet River is probably running, I'm going to guess, this is, you know, probably just a variation of the I crawled typical types of teams. We see a Gliscor. There is a team which has these three as the leadoff, which is quite ubiquitous now. It's I think it's like Quagsire, Cresselia, and Clef is the last three. It's an interesting combination, and I think Void has been using it quite a bit lately. Here we see Latias come in, potentially a Specs Lati. The one thing that's, you know, I'm not 100% fond of on the team here is that you're really vulnerable to spikes. I don't know if he has a spinner or not, but the problem is, you know, Zong without mag, lead Zong specifically without mag, or if it's, you know, not Trick Iron Ball or Trick Choice Band, let's Scarm in, and if you don't have a spinner, if you don't have mag, I mean, you just get spiked up on. And if you get, I assume this is probably Mixtar, you know, T-Tran of course takes care of Scarm and Lottie, but the issue with that is, you know, look, one layer of spikes, you know, alone without any sort of recourse, you know, can be really, really deadly long term. And, you know, again, Bronzong is often relied upon by these teams as a defensive backbone, even though it's in the lead slot. So Scarm can just keep coming in over and over and over. I'm guessing this is Scarftar. Scarftar lead, very common, very good, very, very good set on stall, and I think it's one of the things that single-handedly enables stall to handle things like Zelf HO decently. He gets the pursuit and kills it, and the reason why is because you get rocks up turn 1. It's really good as a lead, and it also, you know, kind of hides what your type of team could be, because T-Tar does not necessarily mean stall, it doesn't necessarily mean offense, it could be something in between, it could be both of them. So, okay, so here we see a Rotom last. This is, I think, so, this is not going to be easy for Mustounet, because looking at the oh, okay, well, there we go. You know, I mean, depends. I'm guessing that he has to have a Lati or a Cresselia in the back here. You know, I mean, also, he should probably... okay, so what he's basically trying to do here is this might have Ace or Wing Attack, which it does, which would Oko Breloom, but he played this really well, this sequence, because he got Gliscor on the one Roost, and now he doubles back to Breloom again as he goes to Clef, and we're going to see if there is a Latias revealed here or not. Okay, Sactar in the superpower. I would have probably Seed Bomb there, but Gliska can come in, and with that he can roost up without being really that afraid of a... I think it's probably like 40-ish? Yeah, okay, so about 40% or so. My mental calc is still there, even though it's 5 in the morning. Okay, Rotom. This is, however, you know, really tough for him, because when it comes down to it, Gliscor, you know, is so good at just annoying the hell out of offenses. Truly. And that's Spectran again. Okay, so, and there's rocks. Alright. The issue is Gliscor really just sits on this team. Rotom is able to come into Glisk, you know, obviously, but it's on a timer. It's pursuitable. Okay, there's the Quag. His last is going to be Cresselia, I think. And it's also, you know, sometimes some sets can't even really kill Gliscor effectively. And then you have things like Heatran, T-Tar, which just, you know, look, they don't want to stay in on Gliscor at all. Of course, I have seen Vizdef HP Ice Heatran before, and of course T-Tar can run Ice Punch, Ice Beam, but, you know, it really just depends on what scenario you're in. So, Breloom is going to go ahead and C-Bomb for another 31. Yeah, Breloom is getting quite low, which is worrisome for Mustounet, because, you know, when you really think about it, you know, this is on a huge timer. And, you know, now that Gliscor is back at 100, you know, he decided not to call him out that turn. You know, this cycle gets even more difficult. So, looking at the advantage that Violet River has right now, this looks like it's going to go to Game 3. And I'll tell you what, there is nothing more classic... Oh, okay, so Rotom last. But there is nothing more classic than really, really strong hyper offense into stall in a best of 3. Nothing more classic. I do it myself all the time. Now, one thing I will say about Violet River's team, you know, while we're kind of watching this, and we'll see if this T-Tar gets a suit off on the Rotom. I don't know if I would have stayed in there. I think I might have swapped out to Quag. Quag's pretty... Okay, so that's not even doing very much. One thing about Violet team is it's a great example of how there is a over-reliance on Breloom to break stall. You know, the reason why Breloom is so good is not just because Breloom can, which it can, you know, it's incredible if you have Focus Punch, at destroying stall on its own, because look, it does a good job at it, but it's not a solution. You can't just slap Breloom on a team and be like, oh, well, now I'm not weak to stall anymore. The issue is that, you know, Violet's team appears like it'd be pretty weak to Breloom. I mean, you have a Rotom, which is probably Rest Talk, which can't really touch Loom, a Quagsire, a Clef, and a Scarftar, and the only two things that can really swap into it are Gliscor and Skarm. And one of them might get Spored, which it did in this game. However, Breloom is not winning, and that is a really important thing to notice, because stall is often considered to be like, oh, well, if I put Breloom on a team, it's going to be able to really, you know, tighten my matchup versus stall. And while that is true to a degree, the effectiveness of Breloom is only as far as the rest of its, or as far as it can enable the rest of the team to break through stall. So here you have things like dual specs and I assume Trick Scarf Tom. But you also have things like Bronzong, you know, which is, again, letting the spikers in. And this team, because it is kind of choice-based, has a lot of difficulty dealing with hazards. You know, it can just, over and over, just you have to be, you know, forced to swap out, even if you got a really hard hit in. So this is a good lesson for team building. You know, for one, it shows you how you have to enable Breloom in a real special way. And two, you also shouldn't just judge a book by its cover. Probably gonna explode here. Yep, okay, Quag lives. That's not a max attack Bronzong either. Okay, so he should, alright, well, this is, I'm gonna assume that Gliscor is faster than Tran. I'm not really sure, though. This you know, this looked like it was really going to go well for Violet River, but this might actually be a loss. Well, it's a loss if his Gliscor is not outspeeding Heatran, which maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's not sassy Gliscor, that's for sure. It's not minus speed Gliscor with U-turn. So there's a good chance it does. Okay, and Lava Plume is going to come out, which is an interesting move on Trent. I would just go for Flamethrower because you know, Flamethrower, I think, Lava Plume might miss the 2 KO on Clef, but Flamethrower almost, I think, certainly gets it, just barely for Modest. But as long as the Gliscor outspeeds Modest Tran, he should be fine. Timid Specs is, you know, kind of a hard thing to sell, but then again, he only did 77 to Clefable with Overheat, so maybe he is a timid choice specs Overheat Tran. That could be it. But anyway, here, you know, Gliscor can kind of just win, you know, right away. If this Gliscor outspeeds Tran, then the game is probably over. If it's slower than Tran, the game is also probably over because Heatran just wins. But Gliscor, if it's faster than Heatran, can, you know, obviously beat Loom, beat Tran. Okay, so he's gonna go all in on the Rotom. Okay, well he just goes for the Quake here. And then he wing attacks, follows it up. I guess Rotom is going to have to see. He doesn't have the wherewithal for this, I don't think. Oh. Pump? 40? Okay. Alright. Skarm is... You see, I think I would have sacked Skarm there. I mean, Skarm was asleep. I don't know. Tran is gonna wake up. All right, okay. That was a good play. That was a good play. You know, wing attack. As long as, and Gliscor might live a Hydro Pump too. I don't know the EVs on this, but it might be able to do it. Additionally, if this has Trick, then okay, he's not gonna go for Trick. All right. So I mean, you know, this is. It really just depends. Hydro Pump coming out, and we don't even get to see the resolution, which is unfortunate. You know, I think he had the sack Skarm there, and then actually, yeah, I think he had the sacrifice Skarm there instead of these. Really, these guys were clicking so quickly in some turns. I think what he had to do there is instead, you know, let Skarm go. If that is Rest Talk Rotom, I assume it is, but it might not be. I would just have let Skarm go to Pump. You know, he goes to Tran, Gliscor is still going to outspeed, and he doesn't have another time to switch into Hazards. And I guess he was more afraid of Shadow Ball, you know, which is reasonable. That's, you know, also kind of up the calculations there, but I'm not entirely sure, because Gliscor might be able to roost off Shadow Ball. I understand what he was doing. He was thinking the immunity. I don't know. I would have had to calc Shadow Ball, because Shadow Ball is not doing, if you're max HP Gliscor, it's not really doing more than 50. So he has to crit it, or he has to get Spadef drops. And with the Sand Up, you get at least one reset on your Spadef. So he has to drop your Spadef twice. But of course, that's all hindsight, you know. And I don't know. I think that also would have benefited, because even if you trick, the Rotom would still be faster, and you could at least get a T-Bolt off and hope for a Para. Yeah. I mean, this was difficult. I mean, of course, this was, yeah. I don't hate the team that we saw here. I don't hate this team either, but they are, you know, setups which I think, you know, have, you know, they're kind of their flaws. I was building a Quagsire earlier today, and one of the big issues is that with Quagsire Stall, you're really giving up a lot by using it. You have to support it in a very specific type of way. And it shows you the weaknesses where the team's going to be slow, you're going to need, you know, extra insurance against Breloom, which I don't think this team necessarily indulges in, but, you know, I mean, as a general principle. You're going to probably be a little bit weaker with the Hazards, etc. You might not be able to fit another Pokemon which would counteract a more traditional threat, you know, like Laddie for Heatran or something. And then on this end, we have a team which I think opens itself up to Hazards a little bit too much. Not like it mattered in the end, because he still won, you know, but we saw a pretty good example of how, you know, Breloom needs a lot of support to break teams. I think Breloom Spectran is an interesting combo with dual specs. But what I think this team would benefit from a little bit more is things like maybe Stun Spore Breloom. I think that would be worthwhile pairing with Spectran, because, you know, you Spore, then they swap in like Gliscor, or they swap in Lottie, and you get a Stun Spore off on it, and then Heatran can go absolutely berserk with Flamethrower. But that's, you know, just food for thought. Maybe I'll build a team like that. But this was a very, very quick series, and I kind of regret that I didn't catch it from the turn one. But it was very, very quick, and you could see how these players really just went, you know, light speed in some turns. Anyway, this is going to be, I think this was semifinals of the play-ins. So Mustounet is now on to the finals next round of play-ins, which is going to be, I forget exactly who it's against. It's versus George 182's opponent. So that's what we're gonna see, and I am very much excited to see how this concludes, and I will try and 100% get the final game live. Unfortunately, this commentary is going to be, you know, a little impacted by just the speed of the game, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace.